In 1984, one of the most influential science fiction movies of all time would release, known simply as The Terminator, a film about a dystopian future where machines have taken over the world and eliminated most of mankind. The movie was a big success and created a massive franchise that would continue on for decades. However, its release also caused a bit of controversy. Enter writer Harlan Ellison, an award-winning author of many short stories and novels, and scriptwriter for shows like The Outer Limits and Star Trek. Harlan was known for being a bit combative. One time it was reported he tried to throw a studio executive out of a window. He was also known for being very litigious. If he got a whiff that something you made even remotely resembled one of his works, you could expect to be served a lawsuit. When Harlan discovered that one of his Outer Limits episodes may have been ripped off, it threw him into a fury, which resulted in a lawsuit that made Terminator director James Cameron very unhappy. So today I figured we could look at the Outer Limits episode Soldier, and maybe together find out if the Terminator did indeed rip it off, or if Harlan maybe just overreacted a bit. The episode kicks off in a dystopian apocalyptic future as a laser battle commences in the background. You know, Harlan may have been right. Two soldiers are tracking each other down, Corlo and another unidentified soldier. Even though the one doesn't have a name, he does have a watch with 4K. The two men run at each other because, as we all know, laser guns are close-range weapons, when a couple beams of light send the men into some kind of time vortex. Corlo is sent to an alleyway somewhere in the 1960s United States. A man from an apocalyptic future being sent to an alleyway in the past? Everyone freaks out thinking Corlo just killed this man when the old man simply had a heart attack because he saw someone rush him wearing a garbage can for clothing. The police show up and their tiny pistols are no match for his laser gun, although they do manage to shoot off his helmet, which causes the sound around him to cause him a great deal of pain. These men from the future are very sensitive boys. Meanwhile, the enemy still seems to be stuck in that damn time vortex. Corlo is brought to a psychiatric center where language expert Tom Kagan is brought in because to everyone else, Corlo is just speaking gibberish.
It took 6 beefy men to put him into the 2 straitjackets he's wearing, and they sent down a philologist.
Well, I do know a little karate.
This man knows zero karate. Corlo is brought in and placed inside a padded cell. The sounds of a nearby elevator go off, causing Corlo immense pain. Tom suggests they give him his helmet back as it was equipped with sound dampening technology, but the other guy, Paul, is like, nah, let him suffer. Tom, our language expert, wants to speak to Corlo face to face because listening to him through a drive-through speaker doesn't seem to have the same effect. Paul, on the other hand, thinks Corlo is a walking atom bomb and the most fearsome weapon he's ever seen. Alright, so he zapped a cop car, but beyond that, what has convinced this man Corlo is this huge, dangerous threat? Tom convinces Paul to let him see Corlo, and just like that, he does. Corlo almost tries to leave, but remembers what those primitive pistols are capable of. Tom offers Corlo a cigarette as a kind of peace offering, and Corlo can't resist that smooth, sweet taste of tobacco. Even in an apocalyptic hellscape, they still have cigarettes.
Kagan. You.
This is our language expert, ladies and gentlemen. Luckily for Tom, Corlo just so happens to speak English and tells him his name, though that seems to be the only thing he can say. His name, rank, and his serial letters. Corlo is a soldier and nothing more.
Corlo, stop playing dumb! Dog!
You know, Corlo kinda looks like Gene Simmons. Tom doesn't get too far with Corlo, but he does learn that the man can say dog, so there's that, I guess. Actually, he learns a little more than that. Corlo tells Tom in a fragmented way that he's a soldier from the future and somehow got caught in a couple laser beams and was sent back to the past. Tom draws a terrible picture of our galaxy and has Corlo do the same for his, and would you look at that, they're the same, except Corlo adds a few extra stars. So Tom takes it to a friend of his at the Naval Observatory, and after a few hours the men find out that the image Corlo drew is the position these stars will be in 1800 years in the future, which obviously proves he's from there. I love how all it takes is a crudely drawn picture, and they're like, yep, he's from the future.
Love.
Grrr, love angers Corlo. Actually, he's just tired of being talked to like he's a child and wants to be sent back to his own time. Tom tries to comfort Corlo but learns real quick he doesn't like being touched. Immediately after being attacked by Corlo, Tom tells Paul to release him and let him live with him and his family so he can learn to adapt. Tom has already spoken to his family, and his wife, while she isn't 100% on board, she is still willing to give it a shot. His kids, on the other hand, are like, a soldier from the future with laser guns? Hell yeah, we want him living with us. And just like that, Corlo is set free to live with the Kagans.
You're going home with me now, Corlo.
I don't peep.
You know, a home, stupid. Tom is kind of a terrible language expert. All he's done this whole time is constantly repeat the same words over and over, as if saying them for the 20th time will help Corlo understand what he's saying.
D-O-G. Dog.
It's pretty noisy outside, shouldn't he have his soundproof helmet? Meanwhile, the enemy soldier has finally passed into the present, which is located somewhere on a soundstage. The Kagan family all line up to welcome their man from the future.
Corlo, this is my wife, Abby. My daughter, Tony, and Lauren is the...
Wait, the daughter is named Tony and the son is named Lauren? I think we've got those backwards, Mr. Language Expert. Corlo's like, yeah, nice family. Anyways, you've got a cat? In the future, cats are used for war. They go on patrol, and when they spot the enemy, they communicate telepathically. See, I always knew they could talk, they just don't want to pay taxes. Tom's wife Abby goes to put her arm around her husband, and Corlo gets on the defensive thinking she's attacking him. The whole wife and kids thing is sort of a foreign concept to Corlo, as he was born in what he calls a hatchery. So he's basically been a property of the state from the moment of conception. Though aren't we all? After nearly attacking his wife, Tom figures his youngest son Lauren should show Corlo to his room. I think the family is starting to have second thoughts about the whole Corlo thing.
Subject gave information that his world is divided into two warring camps.
Yeah, Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. Even though the family is housing Corlo, they still can't let anyone know that he exists. Tom gives his son a warning that if he tells anyone, by God, he'll get such a beating. Tony walks into the kitchen, and this seems to really anger Corlo, and I kind of understand. I mean, why is such a young girl wearing a pearl necklace? It totally clashes with her outfit. I do love that he almost straight up backhands her though when she tries to stick up for herself. The enemy soldier has made his way to Anytown, USA, and while he uses his tracker, I wonder just who the hell is holding his gun. Things seem to go sideways when Corlo apparently breaks into a gun store and arms himself.
Why did you do this? You tell me, you talk to me.
Trooper needs a gun.
Tom does quite possibly the dumbest thing imaginable when he decides to enter the gun shop despite Corlo telling him multiple times that he will kill him. Somehow Tom manages to bring Corlo home, but right before he does, Paul calls Abby to tell her to take the phone off the hook as soon as Corlo loses his weapon. This way, they'll know he's unarmed and they can capture him. I don't really know how that plan's supposed to work. Are they just going to keep calling until they get a busy signal? Tom manages to convince Corlo to give him his gun and Abby takes the phone off the hook. Tom gives Corlo the bad news that because of what he did, some men will be coming by to speak to him, which probably wasn't the best thing to tell him because this guy has a hair-trigger temper. You know, you could have used the front door. I guess they don't have manners in the future either. Corlo tussles with the enemy for like 5 seconds, and then I have no idea what happens. They both sort of just get zapped by something and turn into a pile of dust. A pile of dust that seems to appear and disappear between shots. Looking at the Terminator and comparing it to Soldier, there are a few similarities. The first 30 seconds of Soldier are very similar to the opening scenes of Terminator. The apocalyptic future full of laser battles, and the man being sent back in time to a present-day alleyway where he's confronted by police. But beyond that, the stories are very different. Still though, this was all Harlan Ellison needed to sue James Cameron and the studio. Prior to the Terminator's release, Ellison claims he had been told by a friend that there was a script floating around that read a lot like his script for Soldier. Harlan and his attorney tried to apply at Hemdale and Orion Film so they could get a look at the Terminator script, but Hemdale denied the request.
Now, the minute someone tells you you can't see something as innocuous as a script, particularly, I mean, this was my attorney asking, and it was not, you know, I'm clearly not some jamook off the street. I was a writer with some credentials. You begin, your antenna rise, and you say there's something going on here. Well, as an accredited film critic, in Hollywood, I see every film, and I get a screening pass to every film. We did not get one to Terminator, and when I called to inquire from Orion Films what schedule I would be allowed to go to, they said, well, we'll get back to you, and they never did.
Without a screening pass, Ellison managed to get himself into the showing by claiming he was film critic Leonard Maltin's assistant. Within the first few minutes of the film, Ellison was convinced that the opening to Terminator wasn't just similar to Soldier, but an exact copy, and now he knew his story had been plagiarized. On Leonard Maltin's website, he recounted his meeting with Harlan Ellison at the Terminator premiere. I was attending a morning show of James Cameron's breakthrough movie The Terminator in 1984 and signing in with the publicist on duty. When Harlan heard me say my name, he approached me and offered me a friendly hello. Then he told me why he was there. He had heard from reliable sources that the movie had taken key story ideas from his past work, specifically an episode of The Outer Limits called Demon with a Glass Hand. The theater wasn't crowded, but we sat in separate rows, not far from each other. My experience watching this now famous movie was punctuated by Harlan's outbursts and expletives. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it, and such. Even though Leonard Maltin remembered Ellison claim it was his other Outer Limits episode that was plagiarized, Demon with a Glass Hand, Ellison stated on his own website that Terminator was not stolen from Demon with a Glass Hand, it was a ripoff of my other Outer Limits script, Soldier.
At that point, we made noises to Hemdale that we really think we should sit down and talk about this. Almost instantly, a number of very interesting things happened. The first thing that happened was that the editors of Starlog magazine called me and said, we're getting a lot of heat all of a sudden from James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd. And I said, on what grounds? Well, what had happened was they had interviewed Cameron prior to the film's release. And Cameron had been his usual, I've never met the man, but I gather that he has an ego that makes mine look minuscule by comparison. And that in the course of his interview, someone had said to him, where did you get the basic conception for Terminator? And his response was, oh, I ripped off a couple of Outer Limits segments.
Before this interview would hit shelves, the quote from James Cameron, where he said he ripped off the idea from a couple Outer Limits episodes, was removed due to pressure from Hemdale Film and producer Gail Ann Hurd. However, Ellison claims he knew someone at Starlog as he had previously worked there, and they had slipped him the unedited version of the interview with that quote still intact. Interestingly, close friend of Ellison, writer-producer Tracy Torme, visited the set of The Terminator and asked Cameron directly what inspired the story for the film, to which he said, oh, I ripped off a couple Harlan Ellison stories. With having seen the opening of the film, apparently having a copy of the unedited Starlog interview, and the story from his friend, Ellison and his attorney went to Hemdale and Orion and basically told them to pay up.
So we went to, at this point, we went to Hemdale and Orion and we said, I'm afraid we got him with the smoking gun. Now, do you want to do something about this, or do you want us to whip your ass in open court? I mean, I'm perfectly happy to do it either way. Well, they settled. And they settled with a substantial amount of money, not the kind of money I would have gotten had I gone to court. It was $65,000 or $75,000.
According to tabloid celebrity writer Mark Shapiro, the settlement was actually for a lot more than what Ellison has claimed, and is closer to $400,000. After the settlement, every release of The Terminator would have a credit that said, "Acknowledgement to the works of Harlan Ellison." Now, we've heard a lot of what Harlan Ellison has said, but what about James Cameron? At a T2 convention all the way back in 1991, James Cameron said, "For legal reasons, I'm not supposed to comment on that, but it was a real bum deal. I had nothing to do with it, and I disagree with it." However, in the 2009 biographical book The Futurist, James Cameron would finally speak on the matter. It was a nuisance suit that could have easily have been fought. I expected Hemdale and Orion to fight for my rights, but they abandoned me. The insurance company told me if I didn't agree to the settlement, they would come to me personally for the damages if they lost the suit. Having no money at the time, I had no choice but to agree to the settlement. Of course, there was a gag order as well, so I couldn't tell this story, but now I frankly don't care. It's the truth. Harlan Ellison is a parasite who can kiss my ass. Now, most of the information in this situation comes from one side, that being Harlan Ellison. And I find it interesting that his friend Tracy happened to give him a near identical quote to his Starlog magazine interview that no one outside of Ellison has ever seen. Could some of the story have been fabricated? Maybe. Ellison was known for his lawsuits and would sue people for just about anything.
I wish someone would have come from the future and warned me not to talk to you.
That's my idea! You're stealing my idea!
Sorry.
On the flip side, the opening to The Terminator is very close to the opening of Soldier, and James Cameron could have been inspired by it when writing his own story. This wouldn't be the first time James Cameron would use an old science fiction movie or show for inspiration when it came to his own works. Just look at these side-by-side comparisons to James Cameron's Aliens and the 1954 sci-fi giant ant film Them. But what do you think? Did James Cameron plagiarize Harlan Ellison, or was it a case of an homage taken a little too far? Let me know down in the comments. If you'd like some more Harlan Ellison, well, I have a video about the film adaptation to his short story A Boy and His Dog, and you can find that right here. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're having a great day and stay spooky.